How's it going, my truant people? Dr. Slacking, the Slacking Doctor, back on Pokemon Showdown for week 4 of the LTC, and today we're going up against my good friend TheOneguy and his Michigan Mienshaos. This is the third or fourth time we've battled him on the channel, quite a few times, so you guys probably know Elliot by now. And he's a really good battler. He is currently roughly like 3-for-1 against me, I think, in draft leagues. I've only beaten him once, which was an Owl. Other than that, he's beaten me every time in draft leagues, really. I beat him in the Little Cup off-season in the ABC as well, but I might have cheated. Don't mention that to anyone. But as we do now, we're going to do the post-com here, and we're going to go over the team. I should say, you've probably already seen a video like this, but this is the first one I'm recording in my new office. So we have the white background, the lighting's not very good. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. I might be able to get a lamp or something, I don't know. But yeah, so we've got a new office, new setup and everything, and it feels pretty cool. And also, this is the first time I'm recording with it, but again, you will have already seen it. But shout out to my man 2-Bit Crow for this lovely new layout. You should be able to see those animated sprites down on it. Looking pretty nice. Extra work for me, but I'm happy to do it. So shout out for him for coming up with that awesome layout for us. At some point, I might try and get the chat on there as well, or I might just do away with that. I haven't really decided yet. Anyway. So first things first, let's go through the build and what we decided to bring and why we decided to bring it. So he has a very scary offensive team. He has Slurpuff to set webs, he has Tyrantrum to sweep under webs, he has Linoone to sweep under webs, and they're his three kind of major offensive threats. Bellydrum Slurpuff or Sticky Web Slurpuff, Bellydrum Linoone, and Banded, Scarf, Dragon Dance Tyrantrum. However you're in Tyrantrum in this format, it is terrifying. It is such a scary mon. So with that in mind, we had to build something to be able to counter setup sweepers. One of my biggest weaknesses, in my opinion, in draft play or in Pokemon in general, is I don't counter setup very well. I don't set up myself very well. So that means that we did not have a great matchup as me as a player, never mind the team. He also had things like Whirlipede, which could come and be bulky, set up T-Spikes, set up Spikes, just hazard stack on us. He had Xatu, which could magic bounce back our hazards, and Defog, which was a bit of a pain. He had Pignite with Thick Fat, which is kind of bulky with Eviolite and gets some interesting moves. I actually quite like Pignite in this format. And he had just a couple of other things that were like medium scary. Electrode, very fast, able to Volt Switch on me very nicely and get momentum. Meganium, week 1 against Devious Ditto, I'm sure most of you know. He basically walled Ditto out with the Meganium. Ditto's whole squad just couldn't touch his Meganium pretty much, so we had to be prepared for that. So with these things in mind, we were trying to break his couple of walls, but particularly we were trying to counter his sweepers where we could. So first things first was Gramble, and this set, in my opinion, was fire. This is the reason that we felt free trading away Serena at the start of the season, was that Serena I drafted because it was an excellent rapid spinner. And with Queenly Majesty, it couldn't be touched by Linoone, and Foss and I were talking after Linoone was drafted, and we realised that every team needed to have a Linoone counter. Well, we did, and it was this Gramble. This was our counter, because with the Chillonberry on there, he's going to click E-Speed against us. That's going to be his only normal type coverage, because he needs to run like Stomping Tantrum for the Metang, or Seed Bomb for the Mudbray, or Shadow Claw for the Hypno. So he's only going to have E-Speed. He's not going to have Return, in my opinion. So Chillonberry makes it so that we eat an E-Speed at like 50%, something crazy. We don't take much from the E-Speed at all in this set. We have Play Rough, Close Combat, Stone Edge, and Super Fang. Play Rough, obviously just powerful stab, hit the Tyrantrum. Close Combat was exactly for that Linoone. When he fired off an E-Speed, I just took him out with a Close Combat in one shot. Stone Edge was for the Whirlipede, although I expected it to outspeed me, but you know, maybe if I don't know, if I got an Intimidate, maybe I could live one, or if it was just a hazard stack and it didn't have poison coverage. I wasn't sure what the Whirlipede was going to bring, if he even brought it, so Stone Edge was just nice for that. Also hit Xatu pretty hard too. Super Fang was there particularly with the Meganium in mind. I could wear that thing down. Really important to kind of wear that Meganium down as quickly as I could. One of the most important things for me winning here, in my opinion. Then we had just max attack adamant, as I say, to just... This is a fairly offensive Gramble. All the rest in defense, because I didn't expect us to really be taking any special hits, so I didn't bother with HP. I just wanted to make sure that we tanked that E-Speed as well as we could. The other reason being that I could be less precious with this thing if I knew I could take an E-Speed and live at a good range. So, for example, if I put it all in HP and I took 70% through the Chillonberry from E-Speed, then I could only take 30% damage up to that point with Rock Surf and everything else, Gramble being a slow mon. that was pretty unlikely. So what I needed to do was make sure I could live it with about 50% even, so that I could still use Granville and not be overly precious with it. That was my thinking. Adamant, as I say, just to make sure that we echoed that close combat. I think we needed to be adamant, I can't quite remember. But anyway, it also just meant good damage on Tyrantrum and everything else, so that was nice. Next up we have Andrew, our Sork, and I should say as well, guys, by the way, these two are both shiny, but for some reason in the battle they lost their shininess. This is happening a lot to me recently on Showdown. I keep building teams for draft leagues and some of them come out shiny, some of them don't. This week nothing came out shiny. If you guys know why this is happening, please let me know, because I have no idea why this is happening. But we have Andrew, the shiny Sork. This time we didn't decide to run a Z move, although I was tempted, with the Choice Scarf on there. The Choice Scarf means we outsped everything on his team, barring Unburdened Slurpuff and Timid. Timid plus 2 Gorobus. That's another thing he has. Sorry, he had Shell Smash Gorobus on there as well. Plus 2 Shell Smash Gorobus. If it was Timid, we didn't outspeed, but if it was Modest, we outsped it. And Electrode is just so fast. So we weren't getting near Electrode, to be fair. Did mean we could run Adamant Nature. I could have run... Oh, my phone is ringing. I do apologise. Hopefully you can't hear that. I could have run a Jolly Nature and possibly outsped Timid Gorobus at plus 2. Probably could have, thinking about it. And could have maybe got Modest Electrode. Maybe, I'm not quite sure off the top of my head. I don't know about that. But I didn't want to. I just wanted to be adamant to get as much damage as we could. The other reason that Andrew's amazing in this matchup is Sturdy. Against setup sweepers like Belly Drum Slurpuff and Belly Drum Lanoon, Sturdy is an amazing ability to have if rocks aren't up. So we needed to make sure the rocks didn't go up as well. Close combat, obviously took care of the Lanoon. Poison Jab hit the Slurpuff really hard, depending on his spread. Knockoff was just there for things like Pignite, Whirlipede, Eevee-like mons that might want to try and switch in to take it. Whirlipede in particular I could see being a great switch into this thing's close combat, so I could click Knockoff. Toxic was there for the Meganium. Sometimes running a Scarf with Toxic can just be a little bit cheeky. You can just get that Toxic off on someone. Then we had Foss, the Cryogonal. This was our main form of removal. Choice Scarf again, this time with enough speed to outspeed Modest Electrode. I didn't see him running Timid Electrode, didn't see the point, so it was enough speed to outspeed Modest Electrode, plus 2 Gorobus, even if it was Timid, I believe. Pretty much everything on his team. A Dragon Dancing, Tyrantrum, this outsped, which I think, if I remember right, Andrew also outsped a Dragon Dancing Tyrantrum. Sorry, I should say that too. So at plus 1, Tyrantrum still got outsped by this thing. Same with Cryogonal. Ice Beam Oko's Tyrantrum if he doesn't have any HP investment. It does a chunk to Lanoon, like 60% to Lanoon, which might prevent him getting his Belly Drum off. Probably doesn't, but it might help. Meganium, it does an awful amount to Freeze Dry was on there if you brought the War Turtle, which could kind of wall this thing. And Gorobus, it O-code Gorobus with a Freeze Dry, so even if you went for a Shell Smash, I could come in, I outsped plus 2, and I could O-code him with Freeze Dry. Hidden Power Fighting, because his main switch in was a Lowland Sand Slash, which I didn't mention because it didn't feel that relevant to me, but I had it there just in case, and then Defog. The rest, of course, just getting slapped in HP after I'd filled out my speed and special attack. So yeah, I just felt like this was a really great revenge killer, and if I could get it in late game, scarfed into Ice Beam with enough chip on everything, I could just potentially sweep through his whole team. Then we had J-Creams of Blastoise. This was our other removal with Rapid Spin, Roar, Toxic, and Scald. This thing was just here really to be bulky, to switch into a couple of things, hopefully roar out some of his setup sweepers if I could live one from some of them. I went enough defense, I believe, to live an E-Speed, because if he had Seed Bomb I couldn't live it anyway. I think that's what that defense investment was for. And I just whacked the rest in special attack so I could like roar out his Gorobus, which I couldn't really touch. So if the Gorobus got a Shell Smash up, I could roar it out. Scald on there, obviously, if something wanted to switch in, I could get some burns potentially on some of his physical threats. Fern, our Sceptile, Choice Spec Sceptile, because Leaf Storm really did a number against his team. He didn't have great switch-ins to a Leaf Storm. Hyper Beam there just because it's a powerful move, and Sceptile's moveset is kind of bad. Dragon Pulse, again, it's just a neutral move to some things. And Hidden Power Fire hits the Alolan Sand Slash really well, which might want to come in on this. And hits Meganium for a decent amount as well, I think. So, and Whirlipede as well. So I didn't have to click like Hyper Beam if I didn't want to lock in on those things. I could click Hidden Power Fire, depending on where they're at. Modest again, because I didn't feel the need to outrun anything on his team. Electrode was too fast, and 329 speed outspeeds everything that I could outspeed. So I was happy with that. I was happy just to run specs on this thing and just get as much damage as I possibly could. Again, basically the idea with Andrew and Fern is that I come in and I just click Close Combat or I click Leaf Storm and something dies or something gets heavily chipped. Fast the same with Ice Beam. It was just really a case of like, let me put some massive hard hitters that run through a lot of your draft on here. Then we had Medium Steve the Matang. This was our main hazard setter with Stealth Rock, Toxic, Meteor Mash, and Bullet Punch. I originally had Zen Headbutt on there, but we decided that priority was better. I should also shout out Checkmate Ben and Sean the Blind Messiah, formerly known as Iconoclast, because those two kind of just, they didn't necessarily help me build, but I sent them my sets that I had, and they were like, why don't you, Ben was like, you need Bullet Punch probably, because you need some form of priority, you need a switch into Tyrantrum, just bits of advice like that, where they just gave me tips on what I'd already done, and I tweaked, and I just did, and they really helped a lot, actually. They really helped a lot. Raw came onto Blastoise because of their kind of feedback. So I was really happy with that. This set I thought was pretty good because it got Rocks Up. It lived everything but a Stomping Tantrum from the Lanoon, so you're starting to see he has to have, like, or maybe Shadow Claw as well, he has to have a certain set to take out everything on my team. Enough attack investment where we do something, I don't know, I can't remember. I think it was just the HP and the defense was specifically done, and then the attack was what was left over, potentially, don't hold me to that, but I believe so. Toxic on there for the Meganium to try and wear that thing down. Bullet Punch, obviously for priority, and Meteor Ash for powerful. Stab to hit things like the Tyrantrum. I could switch into a Head Smash from a Tyrantrum and just eat it if it was banded Tyrantrum even. I think it did like 15% or something stupid. So that was a really nice switch into potentially banded Tyrantrum. Obviously, if it was D-Dance, then Earthquake took me out, but it was worth trying to counter banded Tyrantrum, I thought. So that was the team that we brought even. That was the team that we brought. As I say, shout out to those guys that helped me build. And with that, guys, I'm going to get into the battle. So here we are, guys. Here we are in the battle. And as you can see at Team Preview, I'm actually going to move this to slow. He did bring the Tyrantrum, the Electrode, the Meganium, the Slurpuff, the Lanoon, and the Whirlipede. So something I was relieved not to see, like the Alolan Sandslash, because it could kind of wall a couple of my sets potentially. What else was I happy not to see? That's about it, really. The Xatu, because it stopped me from setting up hazards and Toxicking. That would have been a bit of a problem with Magic Bounce on there. Yeah, that was probably the main two things that I was happy not to see, but I wouldn't have been that scared of them either. Excuse me. And then we did bring the team. As you can see, nothing is shiny, and I don't know why. But there we go. So looking at this team sort of preview from his, I noticed that I don't believe he has any removals. Whirlipede, despite how it looks, does not get Rapid Spin. So he didn't have any removal. I was like, once rocks are up, rocks are up. Matang isn't necessarily a set counter to anything but Tyrantrum. He could lead Tyrantrum because that's a Stealth Rocker on his end. He could lead Slurpuff because that's a Sticky Web setter. So I was like, I actually have a great matchup against both of those. I see no reason not to lead Matang. So that's exactly what we do. We lead with Medium Steve. And in fact, I'm just going to turn that music up a little bit. Nope, that's the internet, not the music. There we go. I'm just going to turn that music up. It's a little bit quiet in my headphones. Hopefully you guys can hear it all right. So we decided to lead Medium Steve, and he leads Electrode, which in my eyes is straight away, okay, this is just a Volt Switch lead. It outspeeds me anyway. It's not really going to stay in. It can't do a lot to me. Maybe these things get Dark Pulse. I don't know. But I was pretty certain this would just be maybe even like a Specs Volt Switch lead. So indeed, he Volt Switch on me does 27%, which is like nothing. Leading to me that it's probably not Specs. We do just get up our Stealth Rock. It's just the best thing to do here. So now rocks are up on his side of the field permanently. He Leech Seeds me while I Toxic him, and I'm thinking, okay, this is not a bad exchange. I don't mind this. Yes, you're getting a little bit of health back, but you're also now Toxic. He might have Aromatherapy, but at least I have to force him into using it. Expect him to go for the Aromatherapy there. I go out into Foss. In fact, he doesn't. He just goes to the Giga Drain, which tells me he probably doesn't have Aromatherapy, so this thing is going to get worn down very quickly now. We decided to fire off the Ice Beam because as I was kind of talking through his team, I'm just going to slow down for a second. He didn't bring any of his ice resists. So you can see that Ice Beam actually did, let's just skip back, sorry. You see that Ice Beam actually did 27%, I think it was, 28%, something like that. We'll move the speed up a little bit now, 28%. So we actually do like a decent chunk. I could stay in because I don't know what he wants to do to me, but I decided to switch out because I'm not overly keen on getting Frost Weakened, and indeed we see the Endeavour, so I'm kind of glad I switched out. I just fire off a HP Fire here because I know that it takes him out from this range, and I don't think he has a switch in to Fern. If I go for anything else, he's dead, so I figure he'll stay in. I stay in on the Electrode here, hoping that he might overpredict and go for a Volt Switch, but he does fire off a Signal Beam. I'm not super against that. There's a chance I might outspeed it, maybe, depending on his spread, but I didn't think I would. I can then go into Andrew, pretty confident that I outsped this thing. I knew that he could be timid and would outspeed me, but assuming he was modest and assuming he was speed creeping some of the things like Swallow, say, I figured I would outspeed him with my Scarf. I don't know if I said in the preview, maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't realize that I could outspeed this in the team builder. That's what I'm trying to say. In the team builder, but in the battle, I remembered better than I did in the team builder that I could outspeed this. So, assuming that he was indeed timid, I went into Andrew. I knew he couldn't really hit me that hard anyway, having seen how much damage he did to Matang. He wasn't super offensive, so I just fired off a close combat, and something was dying. If he went into Slurpuff, fair play to him, but then he would have to fear the poison jab. So, and I have Sturdy, not Broken, so I think close combat was a safe play. So we fired off close combat. He does go into Slurpuff now. I wish that I wasn't choice locked at this point, but I had to take out the Electrode, so that's that. He belly drums on me, and I went hard Blastoise, figuring he might belly drum. I didn't really have a better thing to switch into this. If he didn't belly drum, for example, I could have gone into Medium Steve here, but then if he'd got a load of damage off on me, that would have really hurt. So this was my best thing, expecting him either to fire off a big play rough or to belly drum. He does indeed belly drum, and now I have to go for the Roar. Unfortunately, he does Oko. If he was Jolly, that was a 30% roll, but he did in fact tell me after the battle that he was adamant, so that made it an 80% roll in his favour, 85%. I go Andrew because I know I can live with my Sturdy. He makes the right play and goes for Drain Punch, which means Poison Jab doesn't quite Oko. I think he maybe had some bulk on this Slurpuff from that. I'm not entirely sure. He doesn't get anything back from the Drain Punch there, which is nice. This is what my kind of play was for, because what it means I can take him out with Bullet Punch. So even though I had to sack Andrew, one of my best setup sweeper counters, this is a setup sweeper. He has belly drummed on me. I wasn't sure if he'd bring double belly drum, but what else do you bring on Lanoon? So I was kind of like, right, I have to get it in range of a Bullet Punch. Bullet Punch did like 70%, but then he Drain Punched me and he took back loads, and then he came in and Revenge Killed Sork. Anyway, this was the only way that I could make sure to keep as many pieces alive as I could. This was the best way to keep as many pieces alive as possible. So that's why I made that play. Medium Steve is still alive. Unfortunately, what it does do for us is it doesn't give us great positioning, because he can now go into his Meganium, which I can't really touch. I can do about 30% maximum to this thing. And he can go for a Leech Seed. This is where I make my first big misplay, in my opinion. I go into Gramble because, for one very good reason, I was very, very afraid he might have dual screens on this thing. If he got like a Reflect Up or something else, suddenly Lanoon puts in so much work. I might not ever drop that thing with a Reflect Up. So I went hard Checkmate, fearing that Reflect, which actually it looks like Checkmate is shiny here. So did some of them stay shiny and some of them didn't? I'm so confused. Anyway, I know that Andrew didn't stay shiny. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, so I go into Checkmate. He actually just goes for Leech Seed. I haven't asked him, but I would suggest that he probably doesn't have dual screens on this thing. I thought his set might be like Leech Seed, Giga Drain, Reflect. I thought he'd only bring Reflect if he was going to bring a screen. To be honest, I didn't think he needed dual screens, and then maybe like Protect or something, or Aromatherapy, but he hasn't shown that. I just didn't know what else you'd have. Maybe Dragon Tail, but I just thought Reflect makes a lot of sense against my team if you're going to set up some sweepers. So I over-predicted here and went into Checkmate, which meant he got a Leech Seed off of me. And I thought, well, that's okay, because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to Super Fang you. Anyway, so we go for the Super Fang. He goes to Giga Drain, actually gets the crit, which really sucked. It didn't change the outcome of the battle, in my opinion, but it really sucks because it meant we only got one Super Fang off. He then got his leftovers and his Leech Seed, and then the Toxic didn't even bring him back down to 50. I should now have been able to fire off another Super Fang, which would have really put him down very low for the Toxic damage. In fact, it would have put him down at about 25, so he would have now been on about 10. Doesn't really matter, because we go into Frost regardless, and we click Scarf Ice Beam. That takes that out. I know now if he goes into Lanoon, it's Belly Drum. He goes into Lanoon. I can do about 60% with my Ice Beam. At least it's decent damage. We do 70%, so we actually get a high roll there, I believe. He does indeed go for the Belly Drum, which I was afraid of. I know there's no way in hell I'm living in E-Speed, and he does drop me to the E-Speed. We go down, and it's all on Medium Steve's shoulders. Now, it's crucial here to mention that there is a chance I can win here. A chance. If his Tyrantrum has certain things like Dragon Dance, Head Smash, outrage and a third move that's not good. I don't even know what he might have. And it's like a Lumberry set or something for his outrage. Something like that, or he's Scarf and he doesn't have Earthquake. Anything that doesn't have Earthquake on it, I can still potentially win. With a Meteor Mash, even an attack boost on the Meteor Mash would be very nice. Plus a Bullet Punch, because I should live any one hit from the Tyrantrum. Should live any one hit and be able to put it in Bullet Punch range with a Meteor Mash, I think. So I'm like, okay, this isn't over. It should be over because he should have Earthquake on his Tyrantrum, but it's not necessarily over. I know that I have to click Bullet Punch here because if Lanoon doesn't go for E-Speed, then I don't take any damage, which is beautiful. It probably has Stomping Tantrum for my Matang, so I'm gambling on him clicking Stomping Tantrum here. So I do click Bullet Punch. He does go for the E-Speed, so he definitely puts me in range now of most hits from Tyrantrum. Most hits. My only win condition, I say, is if he doesn't have Earthquake. And he shows the Earthquake there and takes out Medium Steve. So we do lose 1-0. How I feel about this battle, it only just finished about half an hour ago. I'm recording this pretty much straight after it finished. How I feel about this battle is that I think I actually played quite well. I think the team that I built to counter a very scary team actually worked quite well. The things that sucked for me were the fact he brought double belly drum, not sticky web. Really punched a hole through my team. Losing Blastoise sucked. It really sucked. But I made the right play there, in my opinion. I think I had to go hard Blastoise. Nothing else did anything to the Slurpuff. Maybe I could have gone hard Andrew, predicting the belly. No, I was already in with Andrew, so I couldn't even do that. So yeah, it just sucked. I was in a difficult position, positioning-wise. And then at the late game, going into checkmate was a big mistake on the Meganium. What I should have done is I should have stayed in with Medium Steve. I should have just kept Meteor Mashing him and wearing him down, not worrying about possible reflects. And that would eventually have put him in Ice Beam range from Foss. What I could also have done potentially is like stalled him out with Foss even. Maybe if I click Freeze Dry a couple of times instead of Ice Beam and worn down his Reflect turns, I could have played around the Reflect, I think. So that was my big mistake, was going into the Gramble on the Meganium. I think that lost me the match. Not to say that he didn't deserve to win it. It's just I think I could have played to win it if I hadn't lost Gramble, because with the Chilomberry, basically, if I'd kept Medium Steve in, I'd Meteor Mashed a few times, it had died, I'd brought in Foss, I'd Ice Beamed, he would have gone into Lanoon, or yeah, he would have gone into Lanoon, I would have then Ice Beamed it, it would have belly drummed. Instead of having to bullet punch it, I could have taken any one hit with my Chilomberry and taken it out probably with either like a play rough, and then I'm 1v1 with my Gramble versus Tyrantrum. If I can live any hit from Tyrantrum, I win. I don't even know if I would live a head smash. I think he has to go for head smash and he has to miss, probably. I don't know, maybe I couldn't have won anyway. But it was close, and I feel like there was things I maybe could have done here and there to put me at a better position. Getting the crit Giga Drain also. So actually that's what I would have done. I would have gone into Gramble to save the Cryogonal. So just because this channel is all about learning and I like to talk through the things that I learned in the battle. If you guys are bored at this point, feel free to click off. But I'm going to go over what I actually could have done probably to win that game was... let's go back. Let's do it with the replay. Let's go back. So I think at this point, if I stayed in with Medium Steve and I kept Meteor Mashing, we'll actually go back a little bit more. So if I stayed in with Medium Steve and I just kept Meteor Mashing, the Toxic and Meteor Mash damage would have racked up. He showed that he didn't have the screens in the end. And maybe he could have predicted that, but I don't know. Maybe Giga Drain wouldn't be on a screen set. So I could have stayed in there with Medium Steve, worn this thing down. He would have been at, let's say 30-40%. Then I could have gone into checkmate. And if he didn't crit the Giga Drain, let's see, Giga Drain does 54 with a crit. So a non-crit's going to do what, like 30... No, 40-ish? 35-ish. I think it's going to do about 35, I think, without a crit. I'm not very good at maths. That sounds about right to me. So he would have done about 35 without the crit. And that would have put me, because I was at full HP, that would have put me at about 65%. I would have then play roughed him to death. He would have died. Or even, yeah, I would have play roughed him to death. He would have died. Then he would have brought in Lanoon, figuring he could or the Tyrantrum, I think he would have then definitely had to have clicked Head Smash with Tyrantrum. At which point he would have gambled missing. It's about 80% accurate, 85% accurate. Had he missed and I play roughed him, he would have died. Then he would have gone Lanoon, and he couldn't belly drum on me because he would have known he'd dropped to close combat. He would have had to E-speed me, which I would have eaten with my Chilomberry, and then I would have killed him, or Foss would have come in and revenge killed anyway. So there was just like maybe some stuff I could have done. Could have done a little bit better, I think. I don't know. Maybe Haze would have been good on Foss. I thought about it, maybe being able to haze down that Slurpuff, but actually would have Drain Punched me to Oblivion, so I couldn't have done that. So yeah, maybe I could have played it a little bit better, but he was in a good position late game. His Slurpuff basically just punched a big enough hole in my team that he was in a really great position, and there was not a lot I could do about it. So absolute shout out to him. He did that. He positioned that well enough to set himself up to win, and I didn't play around it well enough. You kind of learn from these things, I guess. It was a very quick battle because we brought very offensive teams. Maybe I should have brought a more defensive team, but I don't know. So we'll keep learning. We'll keep improving. Next week we go up against Socrates, who so far is unbeaten in the league, although he plays Checkmate Ben tomorrow, who's also unbeaten in the league. So one of their records has got to come to an end. Maybe by the time we face him, he might have lost. Who knows? Regardless, he is a very, very scary player. I've only played him twice, and he beat me both times. So hopefully I can come up with some heat sets to counter him next week. We'll wait and see. I do want to get back to winning ways because we haven't been playing particularly well, and I'm disappointed with that. But there we go. Anyway, that's enough from me, guys. I'm going to start rabbiting on. GG to my man, TheOneguy. Thank you so much for loafing around with me, and I'll catch you again next time.